Hey everyone, I'm Scott Cunningham, aka Scottsy Business, and today we're here with Jonathan Brown, who is the CEO and founder of Mix. And can you start off just by telling us a little bit about yourself?
I'm from Northern Ireland originally, and I've been essentially traveling around the world for the past few years. I've been a web developer. I was part of the Drupal community for 10 years. And then in 2013, I got into Bitcoin and then Ethereum. And I wanted to build a decentralized publishing platform, essentially a decentralized Reddit. So I've been working on that for the past 4 years, and the project it's become usable for the first time. So now we have a desktop application.
Awesome. Awesome. So with everything that you've got going on, how busy is your day? Like what does your day look like on an average basis?
It depends. I've been working very hard this summer to actually to put out the app. So it can be a combination of doing a lot of work with development, but then there's a whole other side to the project with making videos, writing documentation. So there's a lot of different things I have to work on.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Um, well, let's just get right into it. Can you start off by just giving us a brief introduction to Mix?
Yes, so Mix is based on a clone of Ethereum, and it uses IPFS. So these are the two main technologies. So anytime you publish a piece of content, there's an on-chain transaction, and the content itself will be stored in a file in IPFS, so it can be propagated to everyone who wants to see your content. But one of the main distinguishing features is that almost everything you do is an on-chain transaction. So even if you have an emoji reaction to a piece of content, that's still an on-chain transaction. So this means it's totally uncensorable.
That's awesome. Just for anyone who isn't aware of what IPFS is, do you want to just give a quick summary?
Yes, so IPFS in some ways it's actually quite similar to BitTorrent, but it's created 20 years after BitTorrent. So it's a decentralized file system. So you publish a file on your computer, you get an identifier, and then anyone in the world who has that identifier, they can request that file, and IPFS will find it somewhere. So that might be on the computer of the person who originally published the file, or maybe a lot of people are actually sharing the file, and maybe someone sitting next to you already has the file, and in that case, IPFS will just get it from the person next to you. So it's a very modern system for distributing files, and it's essentially a modern replacement for HTTP.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So your site and your project shares a massive ecosystem with a bunch of other big names in blockchain. Do you want to share a little about how you got that going and how that all works?
Yeah, I mean, I've done a lot of research selecting different technologies. What I wanted to use, and so obviously, I settled on Ethereum and IPFS. I use another technology from Google called protocol buffers. So that's the technology for actually storing any kind of content into a binary file. And I use another open source technology from Google called Brotli. So that's a very powerful compression algorithm. So it actually it comes prepackaged with a built-in dictionary. So most compression algorithms, you have to give them a large amount of content so they can actually become more efficient. So they're not good at compressing small files. Whereas with a lot of content, if you're just typing in a few words in a comment or a blog post or something, it won't necessarily compress that well with regular compression. But with Brotli, even a small piece of content can be shrunk down. So That's an important part of the technology stack.
Yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So, so what gave you the idea to start this? I know you talked about you wanted to kind of create a decentralized Reddit, but how did it all start? Like, when did you first start to start, getting the idea, start actually putting it into action, and how did that play out?
So I think it was around 2015. I don't know if you're familiar with the whole block size scaling debate in Bitcoin. Obviously, with Bitcoin, we've got the 1 megabyte blocks, and then with Bitcoin Cash, we've got 32 megabyte blocks and that sort of thing.
Mhm.
So I was in my mind, my expectation for Bitcoin was always that the blocks should keep increasing in size, and it's up to the miners to actually, they should be able to decide if they want to mine a large block, and then they get to that's a risk for them if they mine a block that's too big. And so it kind of became clear to me just from the sentiment online that you know we weren't going to have large blocks. So I was kind of disappointed with that. And then at the same time, Ethereum was really coming to fruition. So there was so much creativity happening in Ethereum, and then it seemed like Bitcoin was reaching this dead end. So I thought, right, I'm just going to start going into Ethereum, and it makes so much sense to me that when you publish any kind of message, like even if it's just a tweet or an image or a video, you should be able to publish without an intermediary. And it just seems so wrong that we're all using these centralized corporations to publish our messages through. And so this really tied into what was happening with the block size debate, because there was actually a lot of censorship going on the Bitcoin subreddit and with the Bitcoin Talk website.
Mm.
And yeah, I find that frustrating, and it was a very clear example of how censorship can just control the narrative to the extent that the vast majority of people don't even know that it's happening. It's you have the situation where if you look at a subreddit, you don't know what hasn't been you don't know what's been censored because you can't see it. And this really affects like whole communities, and this is just one example.
Hmm.
So this is one catalyst for why I wanted to build decentralized social media. Um, but yeah, it just more broadly, it makes so much sense to me. So that summer, that was summer of 2015, and Ethereum launched. I learned the Solidity programming language and started thinking about how would it be possible to actually uh, build build a decentralized publication platform with this technology. And yeah, that was really the genesis of it. And now, 4 years later, all the smart contracts are mature, and I have a desktop app. Although it's not running on the Ethereum mainnet. It's running on a clone of Ethereum. It's a separate blockchain.
Mm. Yeah, yeah, I tested it out a little bit myself. So let's talk about is it Mix Acuity? Is that how you pronounce it?
Yeah, yeah.
Awesome, awesome. So Mix Acuity, how does it work, and what is the benefit of people using it, and how do they get started?
Okay, so it's really I've just launched the stable version in the past few weeks. So it's the first version that's actually usable, but there's still a lot of usability improvements. So just yesterday, I did an onboarding session. So it was my first time of being able to have a group of people in a room together with everybody creating their accounts, and it's very interesting. I mean, there weren't any uh, show-stopping bugs, so it was good that it all worked. But of course,
That's good.
it's very revealing when you have a group of people, not familiar with the project that you've been working on for 4 years, and then of course they need a little guidance with the user interface because they're not familiar with it, and so there's
Hmm.
a lot of tweaks I can make to make it more user friendly. Um, but the basic idea with Mix Acuity is that it's a desktop app for Windows, Mac, and Linux. So you can install it on your system, and it actually, when the first time you run it, so it will set up a full node for Mix blockchain, and it will run IPFS. So these are the two main technologies. So it just takes about it might take 1 minute to get set up the first time, and then it brings you into the application, and you have to you can create an account, and well, to do that, you need a small amount of the Mix cryptocurrency. So that is it is a barrier to entry, but because you're paying for your own transactions, you're paying to publish, even though it's just this tiny fee. It's it'll be a hundredth of 1 US cent to publish a comment or whatever. You still need a little bit, and you need a little bit to get started to publish your account. But then once you're in, then you can add your friends to a trust network. So this is the system of controlling who you're getting content from. It's very important on a decentralized system. There's no there's no parental figures controlling what's happening on the platform. So it's more like with the regular web. So you're it's your responsibility for who you're interacting with, what you're publishing, what you're consuming. So having a trust network of people you want to receive content from, that's a really important way just to control your experience. And so how the trusted account system works is that obviously you're adding people that you trust, but then everyone you trust has their own pool of people that they trust. So if you're looking at for example, a comment hierarchy for maybe someone's posted a blog post and then people are discussing it below, then you're only going to see comments from either someone you trust directly, or maybe the author of the comment is trusted by someone you trust. So you have that extra degree of separation. So what this actually means is that you're kind of curating you're curating people for the people that trust you. So if someone's going to trust you, they're kind of relying on you having a good selection of people that you trust. And maybe if you start trusting a few people who are like publishing low quality content, then people are going to start untrusting you. So that's kind of the mechanism for controlling just receiving high quality content. And
So one question there. Would it be like obvious if I saw a spammy post? Would it be obvious that came from so and so from my network of trust? Like, would I be able to easily identify that? And
if you click on the username of the person who's published the comment, so then you see a lot of information about that user. So first of all, you'll have a shield icon. So it's kind of like on Twitter, where obviously the authorities on Twitter, they can decide who gets the check mark for authenticity and to an extent sort of approved opinions maybe.
with quality
So,
feed, the quality
yeah,
filter, yeah.
yeah. So it looks like that, but actually you get to decide. Every user gets to decide who gets the tick. So this is how it's indicated if you trust someone directly or you're trusting them via an intermediary. So if the shield is kind of just the outline of the shield, then that means you're not trusting them at all. If it's a shield with a tick, that means you're trusting them directly. But if it's just a filled-in shield, then this means that you're not trusting them directly, but there's an intermediary. And then further down in the profile page, it can actually it'll give you a list of all the it's called like trusted that trusts. So it's like a list of people you trust that trust them. So
Mm.
maybe if you're thinking, well, who is giving me this low quality person, I don't want to see their content, and then it gives you the list of who is the intermediaries.
Okay.
But then you can override the trust system. So maybe that one intermediary, you're like, well, I want to be trusting this person, and there's just this one other account they're trusting that I don't want to see that one. So you can actually you can override the trusted accounts system for any given account. You can give them a hard blacklist or a hard whitelist. So if you blacklist someone, this means no matter who is trusting them, you're just never going to see their content.
Mm.
Or if you whitelist, it means that you're not actually adding them to your trust network. So no one else knows that you trust them, but you're always going to see their content. So the whitelisting and blacklisting, that's just stored locally in the application. So no one knows who you're whitelisting or blacklisting. So that's an important feature, because you don't always want it to be known publicly who's in your network.
Mhm. Yeah, absolutely. Okay, yeah, that's really interesting. In terms of the trust network, is there a way to see kind of everything? Like if you just wanted to, like regardless of who you trusted or didn't trust, like especially I'm assuming when people are first starting off, you might just want to see everything that's out there. Is there a way to just completely just turn that all off and just see everything, or just toggle between that at times?
So if you look directly at a piece of content, then it always brings up that piece of content. So this trusted accounts filtering, that's more, if you're looking at a specific topic, which pieces of content appear under the topic, or in terms of replies. So yeah, if you go directly to a piece of content, it will come up in front of you. But yeah, it would be fairly easy for me to add that option, just kind of display everything. So yeah, maybe I'll add that to the app, because yeah, that can be useful. And depending on what you're actually doing, maybe you're in your little community, and actually, just having this trust network is fine for who you want to talk to. But if you're looking at hotel reviews on the other side of the world, the person posting that review is not necessarily going to be somewhere in your trust network. So in that
Hmm.
situation, you do have to, it might be more suitable to have some other system of moderation.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely, absolutely. So where would you say that your project fits in with other projects that are similar, or how does yours stand out from, projects that are somewhat similar in the social blockchain realm?
Well, there's so much innovation going on. I mean, I really believe that there's going to be an explosion of these decentralized social media platforms. I mean, like I could just mention how any developer on these platforms is a first class citizen. So although I've built my platform, any developer can do whatever they want. They can extend the platform in any way, and that's the potential for developers uh, you know just to innovate is that's huge. And so I think that's one of the most important reasons why these old giants of social media will start looking pretty archaic, because they're so inflexible.
Mm.
And so with these new with these new social media platforms coming online, although they all have a similar goal of being decentralized, being censorship resistant, and so on. everyone is innovating in very different ways. I mean, it's incredible just to see there's so many different approaches are being taken. Obviously with Steam, so they've been around for years now. They're one of the first real decentralized social media platforms, and obviously they've
Hmm.
had a lot of traction. And then there's so many more projects coming online. So a big distinction is kind of, is it just a clone of Twitter, but it's still centralized? So obviously with something like Gab, where a lot of people maybe further on the right, they weren't happy with Twitter, which tends to be more kind of left leaning. So then
Hmm.
they thought, well, okay, we're just going to make a home for ourselves with our own platform, but it's as far as I can tell, it's basically it's very similar to Twitter, and it's kind of a centralized platform. So it's just like, in a way, that's kind of decentralized, because you're just it's like how you can choose your search engine. So like search is kind of decentralized, but um,
They're
what we
trying to
really
decentralize, but it's not really decentralized. Yeah.
yeah. And so when people start using more decentralized technologies such as IPFS, as blockchain, this is the way to really to make platforms that are totally uncontrolled. um, and so when I watch lots of interviews with other people working on decentralized social media. I try out different platforms, and then at some point there's you get it. Someone will ask them a really good question that kind of like just gets directly to the point. Like, what if this happens? Uh, what if kind of unsavory characters come on the platform? And then it's very revealing how they respond to that, because quite often almost every decentralized social media platform has they do have that. Even if you just have that tiny bit of control, that's
Hmm.
enough, where they have the ability to censor. And if you have that ability, then you have to use it in extreme
Hmm.
circumstances, because otherwise it's irresponsible.
Yeah.
Whereas if with the original design of the web, which is decentralized, anyone can publish what they want on a website. Anyone can look at what they want. So we don't have people talking about, well, yeah, it's okay to censor these topics because they're wrong, so we have to censor them. uh, you know there wasn't that discussion with the web, because it wasn't possible. Not really. It's just to actually shut down a website requires some fairly strong government action. It doesn't actually happen overtly very often. um, so that's kind of a clear thing. Like, is the platform really decentralized, or is it not? And then, of course, people quite often ask the question with blockchain projects, like, why put it on a blockchain? So there's a platform called Secure Scuttlebutt. I'm not sure if you're familiar with that.
I haven't heard of that. No. I'll have to check it
Um,
out though.
so that's I'm not that familiar with it, but I've seen a few interviews with the founder, and it seems like they've got a lot of traction. So it's I think the developer is from New Zealand, and it's an example of how you can do decentralized social media without a blockchain.
Oh, okay.
So it's and the technologies you choose, it really affects the properties of the system. For one thing, you have some technologies are more ephemeral than others. So if you do have the blockchain, it means if maybe in 100 years time, if you have uh, some digital archaeologists, and they want to know, like, what were people saying back then, because it's on the blockchain, because these IPFS hashes are being written into the blockchain. We can, it's such a strong record. Everything is time stamped on the blockchain. So this is like in some ways, it's like the most extreme form of decentralized social media, because it's totally uncontrolled, but it's every single thing you do is archived for eternity. So it's kind of a funny feeling. You're just like typing a reply to someone, and then you know you hit publish, and then that's until the end of civilization, that's going to be there. Whereas if you're on a more ephemeral platform, then that's not necessarily going to be the case. But then that has its own use cases. Every platform works in a different way, and
Mhm.
ultimately the user has to decide, for any given purpose, how do they want to spend a small fee to publish, or are they just putting out a lot of communication that isn't even going to matter, in a month's time, and so maybe it's better to use a different platform for that.
Mhm. Yeah, and I think Steam does something similar with that, when in terms of like messaging other people, you have to send some sort of like amount of Steam to actually message someone. So I think that people from that community, it'll be pretty familiar coming over to here, and I think that's really important for, combating spam and all the rest of it. You have to have some sort of deterrence there, as well as, you want the people who are using it to actually be invested in some sense, like have a little bit of skin in the game if they're going to be saying whatever they're going to say. So where do you see the project going in the next year, and then in the next like 5 years?
Okay, so the main thing for the next year is to really get people using the application. And there's different reasons why people would want to do that. So it's, some people are experiencing real pain. Some people are being deplatformed, demonetized. So there is kind of real anger existing for some people on
Hmm.
on the existing platform. So this is an opportunity for them to try something new.
Hmm.
And then, of course, the other thing is the innovation. So actually, at the moment, there's so much low hanging fruit for me. There's so many things I can implement in the application. So I just want to keep going and adding new features, and getting feedback from users. Um, but yeah, really just to expand the number of users, and to get real traction on the site, and to see how the trust network evolves. I mean, there's so many interesting things, like anyone can actually scan the whole blockchain, and harvest all that information. It's an entirely public system, and then there's so much great analysis you could do of that. So I can imagine someone will make like a 3D animation of like how the trust network kind of grew, like from the beginning. It might create this big structure. So there's a lot of potential with that. um, and then, well, one major feature that I'm going to be enabling is creator tokens. So this is my solution to the question of how do we pay content creators. And I've been thinking about this, for probably 18 years or something like that. And it was, I think, in 2008, I went to a presentation in Edinburgh by Mike Masnick of TechDirt, and that was phenomenal, because I'd always been asking this question. Um, if we want to embrace piracy, embrace open source, not have paywalls, just have this free flow of information, not have advertising that's irritating. But what if there was a way to actually, have all that, but then still be able to pay everyone in a free market way? I mean, that would be incredible. But of course, it just seemed like it just seemed impossible. Like, how could you ever come up with such a system? And then when I saw this presentation by Mike Masnick, and he had worked it all out, and gave many examples of, for example, with Trent Reznor of Nine Inch Nails. So he's always been really innovating with business models where he wouldn't even bother to try to protect his media. He's creating this world class media, giving it away for free to everyone. Um, and then he would come up with great innovative business models. So he would sell box sets at various price tiers. Some of them extremely expensive. Some of them will cost hundreds of dollars. And actually, the hardcore fans they would buy this because they cared so much about the brand, and it became part of their personal brand that they want this physical item. This is proof. Like, look how much I'm giving.
Hmm.
Because if you just have a tip jar, anyone who's experimented with that, it never really is very effective because okay, you've donated, the person knows they've received something, maybe they know that you donated it, but other than that, there's nothing to show for it. There's not necessarily any accountability of like what's going to happen to the money and this sort of thing. um, so and learning about this from Mike Masnick, this was like a year before Bitcoin was even released.
Mm.
So I've been thinking about that a long time, and so what I'm implementing on Mix is the concept of creator tokens. So and this is an untested concept, but I think it can work. Maybe you can let me know what you think.
Yeah, absolutely.
So the idea is, um, as a content creator, you can activate a token. So this is kind of similar to like an ERC20 token on Ethereum.
Mm.
It can be freely traded. So when you create the token, you specify how much of the token you want to get paid every day. So maybe you've got a popular YouTube channel, and you create a token for your channel, and you as the creator, you're getting continually paid in your own token. So as soon as you activate the token, this is actually, it's already in Mix Acuity, but you have to enable the developer mode to try it out. So as soon as you enable the token, then you start getting paid immediately. So you're the only one who gets paid directly by the system. But of course, to begin with, this token is it's totally worthless. It's worth nothing because you're the only person holding it.
Hmm.
And then, of course, to monetize what you're doing, you want to be able to sell this token. There has to be a reason why people want to buy it. And the mechanism for that is it's a way of gamifying the purchasing and holding of these tokens. So if you look at anyone's profile, you can see how many tokens they have for any given content creator, and you can look at the token, and you can see a rich list of who is holding the most units of this token.
Mm. So like a
So
leaderboard.
yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
So because this and because you're volunteering to make this information public, this is, as a fan, you're actually declaring, I'm a real fan. Look at me, look how big a fan I am. This is who I'm supporting. So you're associating yourself with the brand, and you're proving to the content creator that you're a real fan, and you're proving to everyone else how much you're giving. And then this is actually, it gamifies it, because in a lot of these communities, in any subculture, people can get very, very competitive. It's like it becomes this game, like who is the strongest person within the subculture, who's the most important, and this kind of thing.
Yeah,
That
absolutely. Because I think there would be like social recognition for, say like a very big influencer, the top like the person holding the most of their creator coin would get some sort of social recognition just for holding that coin from someone who's got a lot of influence. So then I think that would be really, really interesting seeing how people try to acquire certain coins to just for the social recognition. If even if aside even from do I like this influencer, it could even just be like I want to appear on their leaderboard. So I think that's really, really interesting.
Yeah, and then once once every influencer has their own token traded on the free market with a market cap, that starts to make things very interesting. I mean, obviously, well, with Instagram, I think they just removed being able to see how many likes people have and this sort of thing. So
Mm,
that was quite controversial in Instagram. But like how many views you get for a YouTube video, like what does that even mean? Are they fake views? What if it's one view but there were 20 people watching? I mean, it's such a it's like a meaningless metric, but everyone's like,
mm,
they want some music videos got like 20 million views. It's just like it's kind of this number, like it's like it's just an indicator of popularity, but it's actually kind of meaningless.
mhm,
So with and you can say the same for cryptocurrency market cap. I mean, market cap is a terrible measure of kind of the success, or even how much money is really in a cryptocurrency. Everyone knows that market cap is a bad metric, but yet it's kind of the best one we have.
mm,
So what I'm kind of what I'm thinking is, instead of ranking these tokens and these influencers by market cap, you could use a different metric where you actually, because how many tokens they're getting paid per day, and the market value of the token, so you could rank them by how much, well, essentially by how much the market cap is expanding per day. So how much they're getting paid per day to do what they're doing. So I think that might be a better metric. So in the blockchain lingo, you would call it a Sybil resistant mechanism. It's hard I think that would be hard to kind of break that system. It would be a strong measure of who is actually uh, making the most money. I guess that's a good metric. Um, and then you could have the situation, obviously on social media every so often there's some drama, some news will come out about something, and then everyone gets angry. So if this would tie very closely with how much the token's being traded for. So maybe someone's very successful, and then there's a scandal, and their token price collapses because everyone's like, oh, I don't want to
mm.
be associated with them anymore, so I'm going to sell. And then it turns out it was all a lie. Actually it was somebody else, and then everyone's like, okay, let's buy back in again. So there's a lot of interesting dynamics that could happen, I think. So actually, this is all kind of it is in the application at the moment, but it's still experimental. I've deployed. There's a decentralized exchange called Uniswap, which is becoming very popular on Ethereum mainnet. So the idea for this was actually invented by Vitalik Buterin. So he just wrote a
Mm,
paper about it, and then I think he didn't implement it himself. It was another developer implemented it, and this is actually being extremely popular because you have a decentralized exchange. You can trade any ERC20 tokens just without having um, all the usual complexities of using an exchange, or having to do KYC and all this sort of thing. And it's an interesting technology because it doesn't actually have an order book, which is
mm,
it's a totally different kind of exchange. So it just works like a slot machine. So
mm,
if you have your balance of mix in the application, and then you want to buy the token of some influencer you like, so you just you just put in the mix, and then you get back the token.
Mm.
So it means that yeah, you can very easily just change your holdings, switch your holdings from one influencer to another. And then, of course, the token, there's a lot of things that the influencer can do with the token. So it's not just about gamifying the token based on how much every fan is in possession of. There's endless scope for innovation where it might be if you want to attend this conference or this concert, you have to have accrued X number of tokens or something like that. Like there's endless things you can do to try and incentivize the purchasing of your token.
Hmm. Yeah, no, that's very interesting because I think it was like 2 years ago or something. I was wondering why, well, when I was first getting into crypto, I was wondering like why wouldn't influencers all just have their own like some sort of digital asset that they would offer? And it never really happened because I mean, obviously there's a lot of complications around them each launching their own like cryptocurrency and blockchain. But I think yeah, this is a very, very interesting way to bring that to the masses. So that'll be really interesting to see how people play around with that. And I just read your blog about it, so I'm interested to try testing that out as well. Um, so I don't know if you really touched on the next 5 years. Do you have like a very long term vision for how the next 5 years might play out, or the ideal scenario that it would look like 5 years from now?
Um, so assuming the project becomes wildly popular, there is of course with blockchain technology there's always the concern for scalability, and because I wanted to do all on-chain transactions for just about
Mhm.
everything, so that was part of the decision to actually have a clone of Ethereum, because on Ethereum, transactions, it costs a few cents now, but because this is with mixed blockchain, it's a separate independent blockchain with not a lot of transactions, because it's a blockchain for this project. So this means everything you do is a thousandth of a cent or whatever. But if we were getting you know uh, more than like 100 posts per minute or something like that, at that point it might start to actually get more expensive, and then of course that undermines the whole platform. So it's running on the it's now called the Ethereum 1.x movement. So although Ethereum is moving on to 2.0 at some point, there's a lot of people still improving Ethereum 1.x, and there's so they just announced the upcoming hard forks for Ethereum 1.x, and almost every change they are doing is to reduce gas costs. So Ethereum 1.x is becoming more efficient, although it's nowhere near as efficient as efficient as blockchains can be. So that kind of, I have a lot of scalability runway, but of course, it will run out at some point. So I have I'm following kind of two tracks. So one track is to follow Ethereum 1.x, but then and to keep that going as long as possible. But then at some point, the project will have to be rebuilt with more modern technologies. And of course, at the moment, there's so many new platforms. When I started this, it was really just Ethereum and not a lot of other projects. But now there's endless blockchain construction kits. So at some point, the project will have to be rebuilt. But I want to wait as long as possible to do that. But yeah, I want to just have as many developers innovating. I want it to be out of control. Um, so there's certain ways to facilitate that. Obviously at the moment it's this sort of monolithic application. There is another application called Double Plus that's being developed. That's more of a web app.
Mm.
We need we need Android app, for example, but also within my app, within Mix Acuity, there's potential for either having plugins where people can, kind of like in a web browser, you can add a plugin. So if you want to add certain functionality, it could be a plugin you enable, or it could actually have its own little app store. So you would, an application that's really just another piece of content. So rather than just forking my whole project and making, another version of Mix Acuity that works a little bit differently, you could just have like a micro application that, you can download, and that would just do something within the application because you want to, maybe you don't want to use the trusted account system. Maybe you've got a whole other idea for how you control content curation. Maybe you want some kind of moderation system where people can vote in moderators or something like that.
Mm.
That could be like a plugin or a separate application. So there's just endless innovations I can make.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So, um, when is the next big update, or what is the next big update that you see coming out in the near future? I know you just launched, so but
Well, the token functionality I've just been discussing. So that's an app that's currently in development mode. So you can use it, but it's experimental. So actually getting that in production, and so people can actually use it. That'll be an important milestone for the project. Also, I want to add video functionality. Back when I was a Drupal developer, I built a Drupal module that it actually added YouTube functionality to your Drupal website, so you could upload video, and this would be transcoded on the back end. So it's fairly easy for me to implement the same thing with Mix Acuity. So I really want to add the video functionality.
no, absolutely. Um, my next question is, what is the current user base size, and do you know how well it's growing? I mean, this is a pretty preliminary question since you literally just launched. So, I mean, if there isn't like a solid answer yet, then that's fine too.
I mean, it's like on the Discord channel, we've got almost 1,000 people. So I'm encouraging people to start use the application, and actually, instead of discussing the project on Discord, we should be discussing it with the application, because that's becoming viable. Yesterday, I just ran an onboarding session, so
Yep.
that was really the first time where in one room we could all sit down. Everybody made their accounts. Some people were on like Windows, Mac, or Linux, and there weren't any like showstopper bugs. It was interesting for me just to see how it runs on different people's computers. And then we created the trust network just within the room, and that was fascinating to watch. And then everyone was able to post content. But yeah, there isn't there's not a lot of users at the moment. It's kind of like I've opened the gates, and now everyone needs to kind of to come in.
Yeah, you heard him, everyone. Make sure to join.
Yeah.
So I guess you're mainly focused on just working on development, but do you have any plans to attend any events, or maybe if not this year, do you plan on trying to get to some events next year? What are your thoughts there?
Well, I mean, I have promoted this project in events all over the world. Um, so in September, well, just in just a few weeks, there's the Bitcoin Cash City Conference in Townsville, Queensland. So I would like to go to that. I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it, but I'd love to go there because there's a lot of people attending that conference or have the right kind of mindset to be very interested in a project like this. But yeah, I think in the meantime, I want to concentrate more on just on development, because it seems like there's so much low hanging fruit where I can just I can implement so many things, and travel and going to conferences. It just takes it's so much time and energy and money. It's so I think for the next few months, I really want to just concentrate on on making the app as good as it can be.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely. So, last question then. Where can everyone go to learn more about this, and what are your social handles that they can follow?
So the website for Mix as a whole is mix-blockchain.org. For the application for Mix Acuity, it's mix-acuity.com. My personal Twitter handle is Blue Droplet. So I think I think if you go to mix-blockchain.org, you can you'll be able to find everything from there.
Awesome. And is there anything else that you'd like to say to the audience before we end this off?
I don't think so. Just thanks for having me on, and I'm very interested to see how this whole space evolves.
Yeah, absolutely. And thanks so much again for coming on. Everyone, make sure to go and check out Mix. And yeah, this was a really great chat. I think I learned a lot myself. So, you know, everyone, make sure to get on there and check that out. Thanks again.
Thanks.
Cheers.